fellow book nerds. Let's talk about January because I smashed it out of the water. Hello everyone, this is Gabby and today I have my January wrap up. We started the year off with a bang. I read 14 books, which is really amazing and I hope the year just continues to be amazing. But honestly, like I just felt like reading. I was picking everything up. I was like reading it so quickly and I didn't have that much of a set TBR, so that really let me like explore what I was reading and just pick up stuff that sounded good. And I read many amazing books actually. I got 5 books that I rated 5 stars. I've got some books that I rated 2 stars. So let's talk about it and see what I read. Alright, first up, I read A Lot Like Adiós by Alexis Daria. So this is the second book I read by this author. This is actually You Had Me at Ola, I think the author's first book. In this one, we follow a guy who has a gym in Los Angeles and they want to expand into New York, open new branches, I guess. And his best friend reaches out to this marketing person who did the competitors like super amazing launch or something like that. And they want this woman to be working on their strategy. Turns out this woman is a childhood friend of the main guy. They maybe had a little thing going on and then he kind of escaped to Los Angeles, never to be seen in New York again. So now he has to go back to New York. He goes back to her and kind of rekindles that relationship. But it's a lot about actually dealing with your family issues, like reconnecting across time and forgiving. And I really loved it. I liked how quickly it progressed and how open everyone was with their like feelings. I really liked You Had Me at Ola, but I actually like this one more. It's a part of a series actually, kind of. I think it's like a companion, I would actually call it. So in the first one, we follow a cousin of the girl in this one. So it's all kind of interconnected. You meet the characters before, and I think we have one more. They're called like Primas of Power. That like a bunch of like 3 cousins that are really good friends. So I really loved it. The chemistry was amazing. The characters were really good. The development of them and the relationship was really compelling to me, and I really had a great time with it. I would highly recommend it. I think that the spices were spicy, the scenes were spicy, so if you enjoyed that, it's got loads of that, and it's got me giggling, kicking my feet, like the whole 9 mile or 9 yard or whatever the hell they say, the whole thing, the shebang. I was sold. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm so excited to read book 2 free, and I'm actually really happy that I liked this one as much as I did, because the first book I liked but I didn't love. So that was a really good thing, and I'm glad I gave it a chance. Next up, I read The Restless Dark by Erica Waters. So this one's actually a YA horror. In this one, we follow a girl who, when she was like 2 years ago, when she was younger, got attacked by a serial killer in this like canyon basically, and when she was hiking with her parents, and he died, so she escaped and he died in the process, but he's kind of been hunting her ever since, and she really needs closure, so she decides to go back. There's this like true crime murder podcast, and they're doing this competition to find the dead body of this serial killer, because he was never found. So they're doing this competition and she joins the competition without them knowing. It's queer, it's lesbian romance as well, and I found it super compelling. It had a lot of interesting ideas. It kind of reminded me of These Violent Delights, but not the Chloe Gong one, the one I didn't like. But like I liked this one. It was just such a weird like exploration of a psycho, I guess, and I liked how it was vaguely kind of maybe paranormal, but you don't really know, and you don't really know if he lives, he doesn't, if it's all in her head. I thought the characters were very compelling, the story was very compelling. I ended up giving 4 stars. The audiobook was really well done and it like really gave me chills, so kudos on that. And weirdly, then I read a very similar type of book again that reminded me so much of These Violent Delights, even though I didn't even like These Violent Delights and I didn't know what I was picking up. So this one's called The Furies by Katie Lowe. So this one's been on my radar since I went to Sarah J Maas signing, and actually this author was interviewing Sarah J Maas, and was selling her books. And I was like, huh, maybe I should pick it up. And then I didn't. So since then I've been like, man, I should have picked it up and gotten it signed and all of that. But I didn't. Anyway, so in this one we follow a girl who joins this like prestigious school. Maybe her father died or something happened. And since then she'd been having struggles, and her mother signs it up for this like prestigious private school. And in there she meets these three girls who become her friends, and they kind of call each other the Furies. And it kind of got to do with witchcraft. You don't, it's not one of those like clean cut, this is definitely witchcraft, but it's kind of like that dark academia spiral of craziness thing. I liked it. I didn't love it. I definitely prefer the Restless Dark. If I had to like quantify these dark, even if they're not like academia, it's kind of like examining of going crazy, like that spiral. But I gave it 3.5 in the end, and I thought it was solidly written. Would recommend the Restless Dark over the Furies, but if you enjoy these violent delights, I actually think the Furies are closer to that, so you'll probably enjoy it. Alright, then I read The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This one is a spin-off series from The Cruel Prince, and we follow a brother of one of the characters from that series. So we have a girl who is a type of magical creature. She was a changeling, so she grew up with her human family and then got kidnapped back by her fairy family. Her family like rebelled against the king. It's quite complicated, but her family rebelled, so because of that, she was kind of exiled, and she now lives basically like an animal off of scraps and like stalks her family. And then the prince of fairy comes and they go on a mission. I have a whole dedicated video for this one, so if you want to check it out, like feel free, go ahead and do that. I talk in detail about all the good, all the bad, everything basically. So check it out. But I will spoil you and say that I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed it as a book, because The Cruel Prince was okay. It had amazing chemistry, but not that much going for it besides. But this one, really solid. I really enjoyed it. I really like the characters, and I would highly recommend. Then I read Zachary, Ying and the Dragon Emperor by Zhao. So this book actually was like my last book on 2022 anticipated releases that I've not read yet by 2022. So I wanted to like read it, close off that list, see how I felt about all of these books. So in this one, we follow a boy who's kind of a little bit like like a descendant of the first emperor of China, and like a little bit of reborn situation going on. But basically the emperor of China, he's like 13, it's a middle grade, so he wants to attach to his soul, but because he rejects him, he attaches to his VR headset instead, and then they have to go on a trip across China to save his mother from demons. It's very reminiscent of Percy Jackson, and the book kind of holds that on its sleeve, like it doesn't really hide it away. I did really enjoy all the Chinese mythology and all the fun tidbits about Chinese history you can learn. Like Zhao is very passionate about Chinese history and mythology, and they make a lot of cool videos about that. So that was cool to see. But overall, this book didn't like move me in any way. I was kind of like didn't want to read it and didn't want to finish it. I gave it 3 stars because I just felt so meh about it. Maybe because it's a middle grade. I just don't think it had this like addictive quality that Percy Jackson has. Overall, I just felt like kind of fine about it. Then I read The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Córdova. So this one is a really interesting one. So it's a magical realism book. It's set, I think the main plot is set in US, but I think the main characters from Ecuador. So we follow Orquídea Divina, who is a older woman, and has come to the end of her life, and she sends letters to all of her living family to come and collect their inheritance. But it's kind of a story of like generational trauma and magic, and I loved it. Like I don't even know how to describe it without like giving too much or too little, but I feel like it was a proper magical realism book. I mean, magical realism stems from, I think, Central or South America anyway, so that makes sense. But it was just so perfectly done with this blend of like magic, realism, family stories, personal stories. I really loved all the bits because we kind of follow the family in the present timeline, and every other chapter is when Orquídea was like Orquídea's life, basically from when she was a child to an adult, and what happened and what inheritance these people have to inherit. I absolutely adored it. I thought the writing was so beautiful, the story was so beautiful. It just had me by the throat. I like loved it and couldn't put it down, and I just sat down and listened to it, which I pretty much never do. I only listen to the books when I walk. But I loved it. I gave it 5 stars and would highly recommend. I think the representation of Latina culture was amazing, and I just loved seeing like all of it and how it was executed. Okay, next up I read Hellbound by Leigh Bardugo. I have a whole spoiler-filled vlog. This is the sequel to Knife House by Leigh Bardugo. I go feral and I go all in depth about every plot point. Long story short, I really, really, really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. I think it was a very worthy continuation of the series. I loved the first book. I loved this one. It was well written. It was interesting. Had me guessing in at the end of my seat. So I would highly recommend to go check out that vlog for more details. But yeah, it was really good. Alright, then I read Descendant of the Crane by Joan Hess. So in this one, we follow a girl who's, I think, daughter of an emperor. What happens then? And her father dies. That's it. Her father dies, and she is now actually the queen or the empress. Like, she is the heir to the throne, so she gets the throne. And she believes with her whole being that her father was killed, whereas they ruled it a natural death. Her whole mission in the book is to prove her father was murdered. I was fine with this book. I found it quite underwhelming. It was really underbaked in terms of its lore, I think. I was just like, there's a lot of things that weren't really padded out very well. But it had an interesting world and ideas. Nothing there to like move me. I barely remember this book, and I read it like only a couple weeks ago. So I gave it 3 stars because I just felt just really like meh. Then I read The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. So I have this goal for this year. I want to read at least 1 arc per month. So I have 12 unread arcs at the moment. So we will see how far I get. But I have 12 unread books. So I want to read at least like 12 of those, at least one a month. And you know, new ones will come in, so I won't read all of them, but I want to get through them. And this was my first effort. I read The Luminaries, which was an arc I got way back when, before it came out. And I'm really sad I didn't read this at the time because it was actually a pretty interesting book. So it's a paranormal YA where we follow like it's a real world. I guess it's an urban fantasy or like a paranormal fantasy, but we have like a sector of the world where these people, Luminaires, live. They're kind of demon hunters. So in the world there are pockets of like reality where for some reason there'll be like a demon activity or like a supernatural activity, and it'll be in the forest, and then magical creatures like they're called nightmares, they'll show up every night, and these demon hunters or like warriors have to fight them. Our main character's father turns out to be a traitor, so that happens a couple years back from where we are, but that he is a traitor and he sides with this other, I don't actually know what they are because the book, it doesn't explain it properly, but he is a traitor, and the main character gets punished by kind of being excluded from the society for 10 years. So her father, her mother, and her kind of cannot participate in the Luminaries' life, and they're shunned. And then basically the main character has to go through these like hunter trials to be able to be a hunter, so she decides to go for it. I really liked it. It was a really cool book in terms of like having a lot of interesting ideas that were maybe slightly underbaked because I really didn't understand why the father was the traitor. What were these people that are traitors? What do they do? Like, you have to explain that for me to be able to understand how bad his betrayal is, and to understand why it's so harsh on the punishment. So there were a couple things like that that I felt could have been improved. But overall, I really liked it. I thought it had really solid foundations. I'm worried because I found with the author's first book as well, first series, which I think was like Water Witch, Wind Witch, something like that. The Witch series, whatever. It also was a little bit underexplained, but because that one was adult, I think I felt way more confused. Whereas this one, even though it's underexplained, I can find my way around because it's a YA. But I think there's some things that are okay to be underexplained. There are things that are okay to remain a mystery or like leave you guessing. But if it's plot critical, like why is it so bad that her father, what's so bad about the people that her father sided with that all of this harshness required? I need to know that, otherwise it just like doesn't work. In the end, I gave it 3.5, but I'm very excited for the sequel and I will read it. So overall, it was pretty much a win. Okay, then I read Five Survive by Holly Jackson. So this is the offer of the Good Girls Guide to Murder, which I think is a brilliant YA mystery series. This one is a thriller, like very hard on the thriller side, on suspense and action rather than the mystery element of it. So we have five people, five friends who go on this road trip for their spring break. Their tires get shot out and they basically are targeted by a sniper, like an assassin, and they have to figure out what secret the assassin wants. So this book is a hard one for me because I felt that this was the author's adult debut. And as an adult book, this is underwhelming. It's definitely extremely slow in the beginning, but very, very tense later on. And I feel like the payoff was good. But then on Goodreads, a lot of people, most people tagged it as YA rather than adult. If it's YA, I think this is really, really good. If it's adult, it's a little bit underwhelming. But overall, like the ending of the book really made up for the very slow and tedious first half, where we were just so tense and so into it, and it's just like bum 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 bum, bum like non-stop. And the author really did a good job of like expressing this like claustrophobia that you would get in this situation, and that was done quite well. I felt really satisfied and really like, wow, that was a wild ride having finished the book, but all the way getting there I was like questioning choices and questioning this book and my enjoyment of it. So I ended up giving 3.5. I feel like that's fine, depending on whether it's YA or adult or what it was meant to be. My rating would differ because all of these people are like 17 in this book, so it would make sense that it's YA. I don't know why my brain, I was like, this is an adult debut. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I wasn't, but 3.5 feels fair. Next up, I read The Six Deaths of the Saint by Alix E. Harrow. So this is some part of some series, but it's like a companion series. It's called Into Shadow, so it's like a companion series. I don't know anything about it. People were going crazy for this book, and I'm a big Alix E. Harrow fan, so I had to check it out. It's a novella, and it's only like 30 pages long, so it's very short. But it's basically a short story. We follow a girl who gets plucked up from nothingness and raised to be a warrior. It's very short, so I don't want to spoil anything, but it was amazing. It was written so well, and the story and the premise was so compelling and interesting that seriously, like, I loved it so much, and I gave it 5 stars. I would highly recommend it. It just felt so intense and ethereal, and you can apparently get it for free with Prime Reading, so like check it out because it was really, really cool. Alright, I've been doing it a very long time, but the 12th book I read was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So in this one we follow two siblings whose parents die in a tragic car accident, and they are left with their childhood home and have to decide what to do with it. Shenanigans ensue. I have a whole dedicated review for this book, spoiler free if you want to check it out, but oh my god, it was just like so good. I absolutely loved it. Grady Hendrix has this ridiculous talent for ridiculous horror that I love, and I gave it 5 stars, no shame, honestly. Like, it was so good, and I would highly recommend my review because I feel like it was interesting and you get so much more perspective. So yeah, check it out. Then I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. So in this one we follow a girl who's daughter of the moon goddess. Turns out her mother stole the elixir of immortality many years ago, drank it, and now they both live on the moon, but she's exiled, so her daughter has to fight for her freedom. I read this for the Read Along Queens Read Along, and we just had our discussion today. So if you want to check that out, we've talked about everything in details. It's spoilers as well. So like if you want to chat, like drop a comment and join us for reading book 2. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I've after talking about it, I just felt so meh about it. I ended up giving it 2.5 on the Goodreads free, but I'm bumping it on my spreadsheet to free as well. I don't think it deserves 2.5, but it was just so meh. it was so fast paced that we had no time whatsoever to like stop and look around and absorb what happened to us. It should have been split into two books. I really do believe that, because then it would have more time to be fleshed out and like really padded out with some character development. But it wasn't bad, so if you're into it, like check it out. But it's just not my type of book. I really prefer character development over pace or plot. So I think for me it was just a little bit like meh. Oh my god, finally, Call to the Deep was the last book I read this month. So it's called Desirée. Oh, so it's called Call to the Deep, and it's by Desirée M. Niccoli. And this one is a paranormal fantasy, or like low urban fantasy. And we follow a woman who is part of like a ship crew that gets wrecked by a storm, and then she's found half dead by this ship, and the captain's hot. So you know where that's going. But it's a mermaid romance. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything because, you know, look at the cover. But why is this like one of the only good mermaid books I've ever read? Like, this book was so good. I loved it. I think it's an independent publisher. It's quite like, I've never heard about it until I saw the cover of the sequel on NetGalley. I got rejected for the sequel, but that made me want to pick up book one, and I picked up book one because of the cover mainly. And I loved it, and I'm so surprised. I'm so excited for the sequel. I think it's just a duology, but I couldn't be sure. It's so good. It had the perfect mix of like mermaid book with mermaid lore and romance. It was so good because it wasn't too focused on the romance. It still had interesting mermaid lore. The relationship was so healthy and so, it was fast, okay, I admit that. It was really fast, but it felt natural and it felt right, and it didn't feel contrived. So I appreciated that. And then the mermaid stuff actually took up a really big part of the book, which I didn't expect. So I really loved that, and I had a lot of fun with that. So overall, like, this book was a 4.5. Maybe even for its category, I would have given it 5. As a good mermaid book, it's like a 5-star. So I'm excited for the sequel, and I will for sure brief you in when I read it and let you know what I thought, because, you know, maybe you're a mermaid girly queen, maybe you're struggling as well, so like check it out, because I actually found a good one, which is a shocker. I know, a shocker. All right, those are all the books I read. What was my favorite? Oh, this is hard. Oh, probably in How to Sell a Haunted House. I think that might have been my favorite one. My least favorite would probably be Daughter of the Moon Goddess, but I read so many books, it's crazy. I can already give you a spoiler for next month, for February. I've read 2 books so far. It's February 5th, and they're both 5 stars. So I don't know what's happening. I'm on a roll. I'm living in this beautiful world where everything is sunshine and rainbows, apparently. Let me know, what was the highest rated book you read? What was your favorite book you read in January? How many books did you read? Did you enjoy them? I really hope you did. You know, we get setting positive vibes for the 2023 with a good first reading month. But even if it wasn't, don't worry, you'll get a better one next time. I hope your day is going great. If you enjoyed this video, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!